Hey everyone, welcome, welcome. How is everyone doing? I am amazing. Happy to see you all here. Thank you for joining us today. And welcome to Mo Money Mondays, brought to you by All About Us Radio. I am your host, Vanda Jamison of the Legacy Jamison Group. You can follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook at Jamison Legacy Group and get all the notifications in real time as they drop. And please, by all means, follow us here on All About Us Media. Thumbs up right below. Okay, we'd really appreciate. So I am in Georgia right now, and I've been here for a little while. And so today's money tip, or this evening's money tip, should I say, I want to talk about finance from a different perspective. I'd really like to talk about something that I'm very passionate and dedicated to, which is the idea of leaving a legacy. And what does that look like? I visited an amazingly rich town this weekend. And when I say rich, I mean a town literally rich in history. Rich in history. It was absolutely fascinating for me. And I gathered with some friends, a group of professional women, and we visited Savannah, Georgia. Now, I had never been to Savannah, Georgia, so I had no idea what to expect. And a day or so before my journey began, my mother let me know that my great great grandfather was from Savannah and he was of the Geechee culture, okay, which was a time when human beings were born with Nigerian ancestry. And so that mixed with the Southern culture made for a wonderful stream in my DNA. And so I got really excited and I started researching, and here we were on our way to Savannah. Now, I did learn just a little bit more, so that I could be of some sort of impact. And so, for those of you that may not know, let me just bring you up to speed with the history of Savannah, Georgia, because the only thing that I'd really heard was about the slavery and how Savannah was on it's on the river's edge. And so it was really great for export, import, and very well known for that. So I'm going to share some of what I've learned. Between 1735 and 1750, Georgia was, I hope you can still see me, let's see, was the only British American colony to attempt to prohibit Black slavery as a matter of public policy. Now, I was fascinated right there. Slavery was a huge commodity at that time. And so the decision to ban slavery was made by the founders of Georgia, who were the trustees. So regarding slavery being banned, General James Oglethorpe, and yes, he has a street named after him, and the other trustees were not opposed to the enslavement of Africans as a matter of principle. They banned slavery in Georgia because it was inconsistent with their social and economic intentions. Let me say that again. They banned slavery because it was inconsistent with their social and economic intentions. So, given the Spanish presence in Florida, okay, slavery also seemed certain to threaten the military security of the colony. I found that very interesting. Spain offered freedom in exchange for military service. And so any African captive brought to Georgia could be expected to help the Spanish in their efforts to destroy the still fragile English colony. So just a little reasoning of why that was so important or powerful. The trustees of Georgia wished to guarantee the early settlers a comfortable living rather than the prospect of an enormous personal wealth associated with the plantation economics elsewhere in British America, and which was also beginning to happen in America, definitely beginning to pop up. They would obtain this living by working for themselves rather than being dependent upon the work of others. How do you think that turned out? The trustees believed that the silk and other Mediterranean type commodities they envisioned for Georgia did not require the labor of enslaved Africans, but could easily be produced by Europeans. But unfortunately, they were not having that. So initially, the trustees believed the settlers would follow their wishes and not use enslaved workers. But Oglethorpe realized that many settlers were reluctant to work. The people that were already here in the South were not interested. And some settlers began to grumble that they would never make money unless they were allowed to employ enslaved Africans. What was it? North Carolina? No, I think it was many of the South Carolinians. Ooh, you got a northerner bringing you this information. Uh, they wanted to expand their planting interests into Georgia. And so they encouraged this way of thinking. But Oglethorpe soon persuaded other trustees that the ban on slavery had to be backed by the authority of the British government. And so the influential trustees easily persuaded the House of Commons that their intentions for Georgia and the colony very survival in the face of the Spanish threat depended on the exclusion of enslaved Africans. In 1735, 2 years after the first settlers arrived, the House of Commons passed legislation prohibiting slavery in Georgia. Now, this was fascinating to me because my family is from Georgia. My ancestors on my mother's side are from Georgia, and we come from the slave culture. Those are my ancestors. And my great grands tell stories about their experience being sharecroppers and the stories that they were told that came out of our ancestors in slavery. So I knew this part. And, for me, I was trying to make the connection of, well, how did we get here? So Savannah was very, very important for me. So slavery was demanded. Georgians campaigned to overturn the parliamentary ban on slavery, and it was soon underway, and it grew intense during the late 1730s. So we're talking 18th century. Its most important leaders uh, were part of the trustees, secretary in Georgia, and they and their band of supporters bombarded the trustees with letters and objections and petitions demanding that slavery be permitted in Georgia. They also wrote, pamphlets which they set out to further their case, giving more details. So it's just so interesting that exactly where or part of the country in America where slavery began, that there was a real attempt to abolish before it even began to flourish, all for socioeconomic purposes. And anyway, I hope you're as fascinated by that as I am. I wanted to wrap, what was it? There was something I found. By the mid 1740s, the trustees realized that excluding slavery was rapidly becoming a lost cause, right? People didn't want to do it themselves. I don't think that work hard programming or that infiltration that we've learned in school, work really, really hard so you can go really, really far, that hadn't started. Oglethorpe had virtually lost interest in Georgia. He went back to Europe, and you know, the southern states took over and slavery became a commodity. And so, in that, discovering that my ancestry came from, yes, from Georgia, but also from Savannah, uh, we did an Airbnb in this amazing house. And I want to speak to that a little bit as well. What's happening with gentrification and business in some of these historical places that were uh, built on the blacks, built on the backs of slavery or black people. So maybe I did mean to say that, huh? Built on the backs of black people. Yeah, built on the backs of slaves, and what that really means for us now and what that's looking like in our communities. I know, being a New Yorker, it's been quite controversial, right? The socioeconomic building that is going on. And as a Harlem native, I have been able to experience that up close and personal. So people like me are very necessary, I believe. And I don't mean someone in the financial industry, I mean educated people of color, to really help maintain the communication and the peace. At least that has been my experience. And that has been my position, because diversity is key. We all know that it's time to get rid of segregated mindset. However, let's be real, it still exists. Socioeconomics still exists. There is still a huge divide based on financial and income. So it is what it is. I don't know how. Hmm. Okay, let me be intentional with my words. My efforts to maintain the education and the information. This is why I do what I do. I am committed to that. I love tracing our history, though, of how we got here, because it helps me to understand where we are going. Um, so, one of the businesses that's flourishing in areas like this that used to be filled with people of color is the Airbnb industry, um, the restaurant industry, lots of sales industry, um, you know, trading, import, export. People are becoming more intentional with what they are buying and what is popping up in their community. Finally, thank you so much. Finally, we are beginning to pay attention. And I see a surge where the gentrification that is happening is becoming more conscious and more present to the communities that they are infiltrating, for lack of a better word. And I think that's necessary. We have to be sensitive to the generations, the elders, the ancestors that have committed and dedicated themselves to these neighborhoods and these communities. It cannot be just about the money, although I know that it is often. It's folks like me and folks like you that are required to help maintain the humanity in the midst of you know this influx of money, and maintain diversity. How about that? Maintain diversity. So, with that being said, there's more to come. I can't wait to share my experience in Savannah. But at this time, let's just hear a little bit from our sponsors. And yeah, let's share. You're listening to All About Us Radio. I am your host, Vanda Jamison, here on Mo Money Mondays, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444, extension 1, and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.
And so we're back. Welcome back. This is Vanda, your host, and you are here tuned into Money Mondays with me. I am a financial strategist, okay? I'm also an insurance broker, a generational wealth builder, and my passion lies in helping ordinary people create extraordinary wealth. And I believe it starts with a plan. I believe it starts with knowing where we come from. And here on Mo Money Mondays, we are committed to helping you understand your financial life, that financial part of you, and helping your money make sense. This week, I spent some time in Savannah, Georgia for the weekend. And it was such a rich historical experience for me. I was very concerned and interested in, the river's edge where apparently slaves were sold and traded, and huge commodity happened on the river. And so, of course, I went and I visited, and there's still huge commodity, but we're in the 21st century, so it looks way, way different. It's filled with candy shops and ice cream stores and restaurants, but there's so much rich history, and we got to tour the libraries, and I wasn't able to go on one of the tour cruises, which I really want to do, but I was able to speak with a young lady. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to bring in. Let's see if I can do this now, right? Because I'm doing my own board. Let's see if I can show you a little bit of a clip that I have put together for you guys. Anyway, we stayed in this fantastic Airbnb, and there was a little controversy because, one neighbor was a Black woman and the other neighbor was a white woman. And the neighbor that was a Black woman was, how should I say, very happy to see us. And she let us know that the house that we were in, the little mini mansion, was owned by Black folks back in the day and recently bought by white folks, young white folks. And she felt that they were storming her neighborhood and not being very kind or fair. And so, we had some conversation, and I learned so much. You guys, talk with your elders. They are filled with wisdom. They are filled with information. They are filled with the most terrific stories. So I'm wondering if I can bring this to you. Let's see. Perhaps I can. Okay, I'm going to figure this out because I really would love to show you a little bit of this clip. So we've been talking about legacy. We spent the weekend, the better part of the weekend, talking about legacy and what that means. And so I was reminded, I'm always speaking about, my clients. We are talking about money and policies and plans and retirement and leaving inheritance. But what I wanted to share today is that legacy is not only about the monetary value. Yes, it is about land, and it is about your estate, and it is about property, and it's about inheritance. But it's also about us and what we leave behind as people. It's about our efforts. It's about our attitudes. It's about our recipes. It's about our religion. It's about our attitudes. And so I have some stuff that I would like to share. It's about who you are, who your family was, who your ancestors were, How many of you are really sitting down to discuss where you came from with your parents while they're still here? What was it like when you were being born? What were your parents doing when you were in utero and your mother was pregnant with you? That's where our legacy starts for us, our own personal journey. And I had no idea how important it was to who I am. And I started asking questions and working my way to current time with my mom. Was she happy when she was pregnant? You know, was she sad? Was she frustrated? Was my dad being a good husband? All of those things help to cultivate who we are and our character, and begin our own legacy. So, this particular weekend, I really learned a lot about building that spiritual legacy. I speak so often about the monetary legacy. And so, if you knew with absolute certainty that you'd die exactly 1 year from now, who are the top people, the top 5 people, let's ask, that you would want to invest your time in? Okay, I'm talking about that kind of legacy this weekend, today, tonight. And so every day, without knowing if we're passing, or what that process is going to be like, we don't know. But are we really passing down the things that matter? Because it's not just financial. Where we come from, who we come from, our ancestry, that is legacy. So we plan on how to pass down our wealth. But when it comes down to the intangibles, the kind of stuff money can't buy, right? Uh, the truth is that the average person will miss the opportunity to pass on what matters the most to their family, their people, their loved ones. So, who comes to mind when you think about those that you would like to pass down a lasting inheritance to? Is it your family? Is it your friends? Is it your extended family? Maybe it's your children. Maybe it's your spiritual children. The people that you maybe learn with or are with in a small group, or the people at your workplace or school. What does that look like? So it might be different for all of us. But one thing is certain: God has uploaded the truth in his spirit in each one of us, each one of his children. So the responsibility to download or transfer that information or our truth to others is it's very valuable. Okay, that truth that God has given us, and I believe that that is our spiritual legacy. Okay, so building on a legacy or building on a spiritual legacy requires us to live out our faith with transparency and pass down the character traits that God is refining in us. So, what does that look like for you? For me, making sure that I teach and educate as many people on financial literacy has become my calling. Oh, I get so emotional when I start talking about this. And because so many folks don't know. And we don't know because we haven't been taught. Financial literacy is not taught in our schools. It's rarely talked about or discussed in our home. Think about it, guys. It is not the lead of conversation around the dinner table in most families. Maybe once you start college or you become an adult, you might visit your parents and want to have those discussions, but we're not being reared with that. So that's what it looks like for me. And when you're willing to share how you respond to, hardships, or how you approach work, or how you approach your finances, manage your money, make decisions, you bring tremendous life-changing potential to those around you. And I believe that that is where true legacy begins. Um, Even when your life feels like it's a train wreck, okay? God can and will use your experiences to help others grow when you trust Him and trust your faith in that way, okay? So please, I invite you to share your legacy with people. You don't have to be gone to have legacy. We think that legacy is something that only our ancestors can pass on, right? And that we can only share once we have passed away. But that is certainly not true. And I'm here to be that example that that is not true. Okay, let's see if I can pull up this video for you. Can I share my screen? I don't think so because it's not in my file. Oh, poo, 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 poo. So let me tell you about Miss Edna, since I can't share the video. I'm going to try one more opportunity though. One more time. Let me try one more time. Nope, I'm unable to share it. It's okay. So we rented a beautiful Airbnb that our neighbors told us was a new purchase by. The house was a new purchase by some a couple of young white people. How about that? Um, and so I had the opportunity to share with this Black elder the importance of the diversity, socioeconomic wise, in neighborhoods and in communities, and put her mind at ease about what these rentals were actually doing in our communities. And I was honored to be able to bring that conversation to her so that she could develop an understanding. Because, so many of these neighborhoods that have become, wow, low income neighborhoods, impoverished neighborhoods need support because the folks that are living there are receiving such low income that they can't afford to really put the money back into their community. So yes, there is a need. However, how we step into these communities and into these neighborhoods are very, very important. But for now, we're going to go to a commercial, and when we come back, I would like to speak to a little bit more about how gentrification can be handled with a little bit more grace and a little gentler. We'll be right back. This is Vanda, and you are listening to Mo Money Mondays here on All About Us Radio. Let's lift our hearts. Let's say a prayer. We've got to get better, guys. We've got to get better. So I come from a gender, and I have committed myself for the last 30 years to not only creating legacy, but making sure that in the process of gentrification, we did not forget the history of the Black population in the neighborhood. And what I found was, there are many different types of people. You've got, I'm going to be very intrinsic and straightforward here. You have some white people that understand the socioeconomic conditions within the neighborhood and are willing to offer grace and support in the process. And then we have some folks that don't really care about that. They're interested in the worth of the community and how much more it will make them. And don't get me wrong, as an owner in one of these communities, we are all interested in its worth, but we also have to be staked in its education and in its culture, especially for our young people. Wouldn't you agree? So I encourage you to become a part of your community. What are some of the ways that you can do that? You can join your community board or your tenants league or your neighborhood watch, because very often there may not often, let me change that. You will find many times that we are not a part of that group. Perhaps there aren't many of us that have this skin color sitting on those boards. So why don't you change that? Why don't you be one of those voices? Folks cannot help that they don't know if they've never learned or never been exposed to. That's that. Okay, I can't say it can't be helped, but they only know what they know. And I say this a lot, guys, about finance, right? We weren't taught. And so we don't know what we don't know. Well, the same exists for other cultures. They may not know about us. They don't have experience with us. They haven't been exposed to Black culture. They didn't grow up with Black families. They may not know how we live, what's important to us, where we come from. So why not take responsibility? I took responsibility and I said, I'm going to be the one to change that. I'll be the one to offer a little education. I'll be the one to stand up. And if you don't know, let me know, because I'm happy to show you. Yeah, that can be you. Why not? Why not? Why not make that your responsibility? And so I have forged a community over the last 40 years that is thriving and rich in diversity. And so I say that because it is absolutely possible. Um, Now, not everyone is as interested in being educated in the socioeconomics of many cultures across the board. And you're always going to have those folks, just like you're going to have Black folks that ain't interested in helping or teaching or sharing. They're just going to be bitter about it all, and that's their stand. And but there are folks like me and folks like you that are dedicated to the education and to the learning and the cultivation during this process throughout our country of gentrification. And so I, in particular, joined the precinct. You can also join, go to your local sheriff's office or your local precinct and see what kind of community outreach they are working on. What's going on there? Do they have community outreach? That is a conversation worth having. Can you help to cultivate that more? Do they have enough participants that look like you? And that might be single mothers, and that might be single fathers, that might be different types of folks from different cultures. But the only way that we can really expect to see and feel the grace in our community is to make sure that we have a voice and make sure that our voice is heard. We don't need to, go to the senator's office for that. We can start at the bottom. So start in your community. And anyway, I was able to share so much of this with this elder that I met in the house next door to the one that the young white people bought that she was not happy about. And when I started to, I'm sorry, it is so hot out here. When I began to discuss the idea of, you know what, maybe I can get some of this. me see. When I was able to explain to her the business of renting and housing and what that looks like these days. It's changed. And she had no idea. So I started the conversation with Miss Edna Ware Brown Castro. She had been married 3 times. Her father had left her the house because we asked her how long she'd been in the neighborhood, and she began to give us her history. She'd been in that neighborhood for most of her life. Her father owned the house and left it to her. And so, of course, that surged my whole connection with legacy, and I got really excited. And we began to talk about what that looks like, taxes, the fact that our house is paid off. Why aren't we doing more of that for our children? Why aren't we leaving that kind of legacy? Why are our children still paying for mortgages? Why are so many of our children still paying rent? That's a question. Why? I mean, when I was in Savannah, we're talking, 18th century slavery, 17th century. We're in the 21st century. We've had plenty of time to get it together. Yes, we've lost a lot. We've had time to create so much more. So I ask again, why are our children paying rent and paying some mortgages? It just doesn't really compute. It doesn't make sense. So what are we doing out there, folks? What kind of legacy are we? And I know maybe many of you can understand this. Maybe this resonates for many of you. How many of you have had family members leave property or leave homes? Or maybe when you were a child, great people. Where is that now? Yes. We're having a few connection issues, but we're still here. Think about that. Do you have a story like that? Have you heard about that? Do you recall your parents or your mom or your dad or family members on property? And where is it now? A relative died. They left a house. They didn't have a will. Maybe it was in probate. Maybe there was a will, but they didn't include all the children. And once it was all determined who got, folks didn't know what to do with it or how to divide it, or maybe they didn't give it any attention at all, and years went by and it deteriorated. Somehow they lost it. We've heard that story. Property that was willed to our family members has been lost due to ignorance, due to lack of education. There it comes. There it is. Financial literacy, right? Very, very, very important, guys. Anyway, so I am very big on passing on the property. Think about that. I've seen some families, they're in their 6th or 7th house and still pay mortgage 20 years later. That's a very expensive legacy to leave. Very expensive legacy to leave. So please, let's think beyond ourselves and think well into the future, well into our future. It's interesting because I had a friend call me. How about this? And I've been speaking about legacy for a couple of decades now, right? Once I really understood how important it was and how hard my own ancestors worked to have these homes that they were leaving, how important it was to just not let it fall by the wayside, how important it was to visit these homes and seek out the area and figure out what to do to preserve this area. One of the properties sat for 15 years before we could afford to renovate. So for 15 years, we just paid the taxes. There was incredible deterioration. But think about what happens with folks and what they do. How many folks are having what do you call settlements happen? You get a settlement. What are you doing? Oh, you're going and buying another house, new mortgage, huh? You're not going and putting money into that house that an ancestor left you. I'm just saying. Let's think about what we're doing with our money, because I've seen that plenty of times. It actually exists in my own family. There's a house that my Auntie Agnes left to her children and grandchildren. It's been sitting for well over 25 years. It is covered in shrubbery and ivy and vines, and she works so hard for that home. And guess what? Her grandchildren, who it now belongs to, are all cooped up in a little teeny apartment in New York City with so little room and can't afford to move because the rent is so high. But they slept on that house that their grandmother lived in, because the story in their head was, ooh, that's too expensive for us to be able to renovate. Think about that. So the way I see it is, they could have taken out a loan on a house that they do not need to pay mortgage on. The loan could have handled the renovations. They could have actually moved into that home and had a huge yard with no mortgage and paid back the loan with the money they're paying in rent. I'm just saying, we've got to be more practical with our thinking. We have to be more practical with our thinking. Yes. So this is Vanda, and you are tuned in to Mo Money Mondays here on All About Us Radio. I have a couple of more shares that I would like to talk about, but at this moment, let's see, where am I? We're going to do one more question. And then we're going to have to sign up. So just wait. I'll be right back.
Hello, this is Najesti from Butter Me Essentials Natural Hair and Body Company. We are located in Brooklyn, New York. We are a family-owned company, which is run by my husband Vaden and I. Do you have hair that is hard to manage? Having trouble with hair growth? Is your skin always dry? No problem. Butter Me Essentials is here with the solution. We specialize in hair butters, pomades, hair elixirs, shampoos, conditioners, luxury soaps, body butters, lotion bars, perfumes, scrubs, and so much more. All of our products is made with natural and organic ingredients such as shea butter, cocoa butter, mango butter, Jamaican black castor oil, avocado oil, Oregon oil, and essential oils. There is no sulfates, petroleum, mineral oils, or parabens, just all natural goodness. If you would like to order our products, check out our website at buttermeessentials.com, buttermeessentials.com, or call 646-524-3351, 646-524-3351. Check
Butter Me Essentials, y'all. You heard? Okay, so I'm going to wrap with just a couple of items that I'd like to cover on my list of financial education, my literacy list, to help y'all learn how to leave legacy and accommodate you with the flourish of gentrification, because it is real and it's coming in every neighborhood. But we can handle it with grace and welcome it and really create peace and order, resilience, and economic increase in our communities if we do it the right way. I think I left off with please volunteer. Please volunteer in your community. That is the first step. When we leave these boards that are directing our communities to the folks that are infiltrating our neighborhoods that don't look like us, right? The gentrification that's happening, they are assuming position. So nobody's necessarily pushing us out. We are just not taking our seats at the table. So let's take our seats at the table. I made sure that I took my seat at the table. And you know what was really probably one of the most rewarding moments that I can remember is that I got to a place where I had white people defending the cause because they understood. So I just want you to understand that there is an alliance out there and available to us during this whole socioeconomic transition that is happening in many of our communities. And they are ready, willing, and able to align with us. So careful of the stories that you tell yourself. It is not all bad. There are so many great opportunities that can come out of what is happening across our country in the world of gentrification and our socioeconomic transitions that are happening. Let's see if I can find what I wanted to share with y'all. Where is it? Okay, I got it. So yeah, we've been talking about, please pay attention. We all make mistakes. We all make financial mistakes. It's common. We're supposed to. But I will say on the other side, because we haven't had the financial education that has been and is our right and is due to us, there are many common mistakes, okay? So clarifying and defining how much money you need to live the lifestyle that you desire. Determine what that is. So many of us are just swinging by the seat of our pants, trying to live our best life. We don't really know how much that takes, so we're just using all of it, okay? That goes back to a budget. So live your best life, but clearly define how much money you need to live the lifestyle that you love to live. Let me say that again. Clearly define how much money you need to live the lifestyle that you desire, okay? Which means you've got to have a financial plan. And so I'm going to list this really quickly because we do have to go. This is just a list that can keep you out of financial disaster along the way so that you can create that legacy, both the monetary legacy and the spiritual legacy. Because when you are not, anxious, financially anxious about your circumstances, you can have a more holistic mindset and be at peace, okay? And I really, one of the things I recommend is that you get yourself a financial mentor or an advisor or a coach. Everybody thinks they can't afford one. And not every financial mentor or coach or advisor is of cost. Sometimes they're complimentary, hint, hint. I don't charge for many of my services, so please do not let that be the reason that you are not learning and seeking more information. Many of our poor financial choices are due to our lack of financial knowledge. And so I appreciate that you are tuning in here and hope that you have learned something through all of my bouncing. I've been all over the place tonight. I know. It started with my Savannah weekend and the slavery trade, and that led me to socioeconomic, and then that led me to what's going on in our neighborhoods and gentrification. And here we are wrapping with what I call the financial literacy list of mistakes that we often create. I know I started. This is how I made the list for you guys, okay? Because these were my mistakes. Get yourself a financial mentor. Give me a call. Ask your questions. Let's go over whatever you've got in place, okay? Or let's go over the questions that you've got. It can't hurt to ask. Knowledge is power. Sometimes our poor financial choices are due to emotions. Have you ever had someone pass away and the funeral home is trying to talk to you about money and what you'd like, and who can speak then? Emotions are running so high, you're trying to grieve. So times like that, once again, let's plan in advance so that we don't have to have conversations and figure out financial money stuff when we are highly emotional. All those purses that you bought because you were trying to help yourself feel better, those were emotional purchases, okay? Um, Fear and greed motivates most of our mistakes when it comes to financial choices. I'm just saying. People also take advice from the wrong people. They're asking their neighbor, they're asking their family member. Well, unless they are sitting really pretty on their own million, I suggest you ask somebody who's an expert and has amazing experience. Don't take advice from the wrong people, okay? Don't take advice from the wrong people. And for those who had a few problems that snowballed and now you're overwhelmed, right? It's just gotten so out of hand. Please reach out. You feel like you're drowning. It started as one little thing and you didn't want to look, right? You didn't want to pay attention. So you just ignored it. And now you're way underwater. There is help. There is help. So please reach out. Like I said, you can reach me at Jamison Legacy Group. That's on Instagram. That's on Facebook. That's on LinkedIn. Just reach out. Let's talk about it. Dialogue is so important. And I'm really good at helping people talk about those difficult things like money and death. Okay. Nobody wants to talk about death, but we're all going to go. So we need to talk about it. And we need to put our affairs in order so that we can be in peace when it all comes for our loved ones. Another one of my big demands on my list. Don't have unrealistic investment returns. Those expectations will put you underwater each time. Once again, have a mentor, someone you can talk to, so that you can have realistic expectations. And remember, for our children, poor financial habits, they develop at an early age. Okay, guys, they develop at an early age. There is no excuse. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, this evening. Don't you love that it's still light outside at 8 or 8:30? I'm loving it. But that whole daylight savings thing is coming really, really soon. Anyway, I hope that I was able to plant some seeds or give you some significant, valuable food for thought when it comes to thinking about your money, thinking about where you're living, thinking about what's going on in your community, thinking about how you can assist your children. It is projected that as early as 2035, Social Security may be depleted. And so one of the things that we are beginning to see is that our federal government is mandating that everyone not only have health insurance, but have retirement plans in place. So let's talk about that. And if you haven't seen it yet in your state, it's coming. I am here to help. It is one of my top level conversations that I'm having with folks these days. Let's talk about what retirement is going to look like for you. So if you are 25 and 30, I am talking to you specifically. Let's start putting those plans in place, okay? Because you're going to need to have something already prepared that you put in place now. So let's have a talk about what that looks like, okay? Anyway, stay safe, stay woke, and live each day with intention. Thank you for tuning in to Mo Money Mondays. I am your host, Vanda of the Jamison Legacy Group. Hit me up. Let's talk about your money game. Let's talk about what a plan might look like for you. Let's talk about a budget. Let's talk about all of it. Okay, guys. Thank you for joining us here on All About Us Radio. We'll see you next week. Peace.
You're listening to All About Us Radio. We're live streaming 24/7, playing old school versus new school. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at AAU Media, and visit our website www.aaumedia.com. Call us at 1-833-369-1444 extension 1 and leave us an inspirational message or request. You're listening to All About Us Radio.